Boom, hello, hey, what is up everybody, and welcome to the day before patch notes. Well, hopefully patch notes. The past two leagues on the announcement live stream right afterwards, they have given us the patch notes, so I am very excited for what they're going to be. It's going to be a long day. But anyway, big news yesterday. New div cards. In fact, a ton of new div cards. And especially one of them in specific is drawing a little bit of controversy. You know, no one is super up in arms, but it has been a contentious thing, and I wanted to talk a little bit about why that is, the different perspectives there, what it means for casual players, what it means for expert players, and what it means for you. So anyway, without further ado, let's go check them out. So yeah, yesterday afternoon, a surprise teaser on Twitter got dropped, and much more important than Dave Chappelle and Amber Heard, at least to me, and Johnny Depp, is we got a bunch of new div cards. It's pretty interesting, actually, what these div cards give us, what they do, and what it means for Path of Exile, honestly, going into the future. Oh my God, Zeus. All right, mandatory cat tax. You gotta say hello, Zeus, all right? Hello. Okay. Anyway, before I was so rudely interrupted, yesterday on the Twitter, they dropped 12 new divination cards. Most of them are not too crazy for what it represents in the game, but a couple of them I think have some pretty big consequences, not in the short term. I don't think that this league is going to absolutely shake anything up in like a really big way, except the Mage Blood one. You know, we're obviously talking about the Mage Blood one a lot here. But in general, the direction of the game, so much power being focused on div cards it's worth talking about. As we can see, they dropped a bunch of div cards. This is the first one on the tweet, is 3 div cards for a simulacrum. If you played in 3.17, you know that simulacrums with the new Atlas passives were actually incredibly common. Simulacrum, if you played in 3.17, super cheap. I think it was like 50 chaos at one point. And if you have a build that's really good at farming it, it's incredibly profitable as long as you enjoy doing it. I find it kind of tedious, especially going to all 30 waves these days. You know, what are the balanced decisions that go into adding something like this, right? It's something that has already become much more common than it was in the past due to the Atlas passives, how much people are farming Delirium maps. Assuming nothing changes from 3.17 in regards to all that, I don't think this really changes much. Though, if more simulacrums in the game, they get cheaper, it's kind of weird, right? Like, I just don't think this is necessary or very important. I'm not predicting that this div card is going to change too much. Let's go to the next one. Well, all right, we're already into something that I find a little controversial. So here we go. 9 cards for a 2 implicit corrupted Watcher's Eye. Watcher's Eyes are traditionally something, I know we already have Samurai's Eye, but by and large, it's something that you get from farming Elder and Uber Elder, right? So if you recall, the Brass Dome, for example, I may be slightly incorrect on this, but I believe it used to drop from the Minotaur, and it was something that you could, over time, especially for SSF players, farm it up, right? And I think you could get the drop in a targeted location. It incentivized you to do that content to get specific stuff. Very nice for SSF and really good for people that like doing certain content, and it incentivizes you to have a focused target for interacting with certain things, right? But what they did in 3.14, several drop restricted uniques have been changed to core uniques as well. They no longer drop deterministically, well, I guess GGG uses that word, from their original sources. To me, that was bad. To me, that was very bad. I think one of the most interesting things, one of the best things that you can do in game design in something like Path of Exile, where there's all sorts of different types of content, that some people will like some content more and some people like other stuff less, and especially within Trade League, there is this additional incentive to build around certain types of content, to go for certain types of farm, going for the item that you might go for. And especially for our SSF players out there, now, instead of being able to like, all right, I'm going to farm, you know, Minotaur for a week, I'm almost definitely going to get my Brass Dome. And I don't think it was that rare, right? I'm going to farm Minotaur for a couple days, going to get my Brass Dome, put my build together. And now, you know, you see like maybe 1 to 3 Brass Domes an entire league if you're lucky and you farm very effectively. But it's just, you know, it's not going to be deterministic at all. And I just don't like this design decision. I really think it's important for certain content if it's going to still be in the game. So with this said, right, maybe GGG is thinking about removing, this allows them to remove Elder and Uber Elder and still have those things in the drop pool. That's something that they may be considering doing, which I think would be interesting. I think that would be a very interesting thing. But even with that said, and I guess we're just going to get straight into it. Get to the thing that I've been, kind of dancing around here a little bit. Stacked decks. Stacked decks are the problem. So if you didn't know, stacked decks do have a weighted drop pool. It is more likely, it might not feel like it if you only open, a few hundred a league, but they do have a weighted drop pool. It is more likely to get rare div cards, especially with really, really good things being accessible through div cards and not even farming them through a specific way, right? It kind of consolidates to this like degenerate farming strategy where stacked decks are one of the best ways to earn currency and farm things up and have accessibility to a lot of things. It's already kind of gross that the best way to farm fossils is like Simulacrum or Heist or even Legion instead of doing the content that is focused for, right? Like that actually has removed the power of Delve. It no longer has an identity to farm towards, especially with div cards having so much access to so much potential power in the game. Is now we're just looking at stacked decks. It's a very unhealthy and unfun mechanic, at least for me to interact with. And now we're looking at basically Heist, right? If we go to divination cards right here, each chest in Deception and Perception contracts can drop between 2 and 8 stacked decks. It's very easy from a Deception and Perception blueprint to come out with like 50 plus stacked decks. And yeah, if you're fully in a trade league and you like that, that is something that you can now exchange for currency, trade with goods and services. But, it just having so much consolidated power, already stacked decks, and you can get it from like Legion and other things too. There's already so much consolidated power here and so much character is taken away from these other farming strategies. Kind of all they can do to modify what is going on with that item is the rarity of that card. If the card is rare enough, stacked decks actually become even more powerful because of the weighting for them to get even better cards. I was gonna hold that for the climax there. So my counterpoint to what I just said there is I don't think div cards themselves are the problem. I think div cards can be interesting. I like the idea of being able to incrementally work towards items. Especially we have things where you can do a little bit of a gamble and go into harvest and try to gamble those cards and try to get more, right? So we're just gonna go straight down to it. Where is it? There it goes. The Apothecary, right? 5 out of 5 cards for a Mage Blood. Very cool. I don't think div cards themselves are necessarily bad, right? And I think anyone that's farmed for patients, nurses, and doctors knows that being able to incrementally work towards a goal is a fun and cool thing. And especially, so for example, the Watcher's Eye card, right? I think the coolest thing about this would be make the card drop from Elder and Uber Elder, right? And maybe you could add a little bit of a flavor, right? Like targeted div cards where like, oh, maybe this map, they could add some like lore flavor. Maybe, maybe the chateau is actually the location where Elder first attacked the Shaper and he started encroaching in on our universe of the Atlas, right? That could have like some lore implications of having a certain map that ties to Elder and Shaper, and it has some character to it, and then you can incrementally work towards Watcher's Eyes by farming certain maps, right? Like I think there is a lot of potential for things like div cards to add character to the game and still not go to this degenerate stack deck-based economy, right? So yeah, same thing here with the Mage Blood, right? And the cool thing with the Apothecary is now we can have additional cards with like a glass bauble and a mortar and pestle, right? That like build up to the Apothecary. Incrementally working towards the Mage Blood, I think this by itself is totally okay. And especially if there is a map where it might drop that has some character. Some people in chat yesterday were proposing something like, hey, why not just drop from expedition bosses, right? That could give it some character that would be kind of interesting. They could tie it in like some lore-wise way to tie it in together. But if it's just in the global drop pool, necessarily because the game is trade-based, it has to be very, very rare. Now, I know in SSF, the game is not trade-based, but in general, that is how the game is balanced. like it or hate it, that is what the game is. So like really based on whether it's a global drop card or a card that's in a certain location, right? They will tune the rarity, where if it is a global drop, as we were saying about the Brass Dome earlier, it will be very, very rare. Then like the best way to get this card, any card that's in a global drop, right? The best way to get it is just going to be Heist and maybe something like Legion to get your stacked decks. It doesn't add, it just leads to this very simplistic gambling, you know, like, oh, we're just going to go for stacked decks and we're just going to, it's full slot machines, right? And yes, the game is slot machines all the way down, but we can weight them in our favor and add character and lore and feel to whatever we're farming, right? I think it feels so cool when you kill a boss. Like, I think it was so awesome that you could farm Minotaur and get his body armor, right? Brass Dome, what is the body armor that the Minotaur wears? That's really cool, right? That's something that's awesome in RPGs where like, yo, I like what that boss is using. Yo, I like the cut of your jib, brother. Why don't you hook me up? And taking that away, putting in the global drop pool, and maybe for things like the Brass Dome and the Watcher's Eye, maybe they want to leave those items in the game, but pull the content, pull Elder and Shaper out of the game. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if we're gonna lose Elder and Shaper by the next big expansion. They've been in the game for a very, very long time. All right, we got the important stuff out of the way. Let's go over what the cards are. The Simulacrum one, as I said, I don't think it's going to make a really big change here. Simulacrum is already very, very accessible, very, very cheap, and very, very profitable. So more Simulacrums, I don't think this really changes very much. It's already a high supply item. The Watcher's Eye, as I said, I would love this card to drop from Elder and Uber Elder, and then maybe in a specific location. Double Influenced Unique Belt, sure. I'm sure we'll see a double Influenced Mage Blood, at least one, and it'll be worth 855,000 mirrors. All right, whatever, right? Like the chance to get something from a card like this is so low, it's just not gonna, it's not gonna change the world. Winged Scarabs here, I think that's fine. We have to be careful, right? It does detract a little bit from what you can target in Betrayal, and going for Scarabs and Betrayal now is just a waste. Betrayal is still so strong in other regards that that's okay. You could argue that it was actually overloaded content with how valuable it was. But I do think it's like kind of weird that the best way to get Scarabs is, again, Simulacrum and then opening strong boxes, those new operative strong boxes. As always, everything is a push and a pull. There's some tension with the balance. We do have to be careful that certain content isn't too overloaded or doesn't lose too much character, like Delve and Fossils, right? Home, this is fine, right? Like these gems are already in the global drop pool. Enlighten, Empower, and Enhance. I think this is a really cute card. This card's totally fine. Things that are already in the global drop pool. You could argue that they got a little too rare, at least the Enlightens, because they are so core to most builds these days. No complaints here. Already affecting something that's in a global drop pool. A double influenced item level 100 helmet. Yeah. ¿Por qué no los dos? Yeah, so the problem here is almost no item crafts start from a double influence base, right? 99% of the time, all double influence crafts start from two different bases, and you use an Awakener's Orb to combine those two hard-to-get mods. And then ideally, they're both on a suffix or they're both on a prefix, and then you can use meta mods to roll the other side of the item and finish the item. Generally, double influence bases are fairly useless, except for like very, very early on in the league. You know, maybe you just want anything, so you can just throw it into some Harvest Reforges, try to hit something, or really nice in SSF. You know, I have no complaints about this. I just don't think people are going to care, at least after the first few days of a league. Two implicit corrupted Namahu's Flame. If you don't know, Namahu's Flame is a two-handed abyssal axe that kind of has bad numbers, but the cool thing that it does is it triggers Molten Burst on melee hit. It does like a little fireballs. It was a really big deal back in the day. You could do like Molten Strike or Cyclone, Namahu's Flame, you know, just a very, very fire-based build. And it was used a lot in the past, but it's kind of, it's lost its edge. I don't think getting a two implicit corrupted Namahu's Flame is going to bring it back into usage too much, but I could be wrong. So here's another thing, right? Currently, replica items have character. You have to run Heist to get replica items. There is no other source of them. This is taking the character away from running Heist blueprints. It was very fun and exciting to run Heist, and if you see that replica Ferals or replica Elberons or something like that, you're like, boom, I just made, 10 to 20 exalts or more. It's rare, but super exciting. It's that like push and pull, that risk and reward. And now people will access them from Div Cards. With that said, it does make it more accessible to people in SSF, but in Trade League especially, I think it's taking character away from the content. Regardless of whether you hate heist or doors or anything, I am always hesitant when I see loot being pulled out of specific targeted content and being accessible to people by just running stack decks. A Cortex, so Cortexes are already in the global drop pool. They're kind of rare, but they're actually very, very easy to get now with the new Kirak missions. So sure, more Cortexes, that's fine. More Eldritch Chaos Orbs, I think these are awesome. I think this is a good one. Eldritch Chaos Orbs, as we know, based on your Eldritch implicits, either dominated by Eater of Worlds or the Searing Exarch, it will re-roll either the prefixes or the suffixes, and this can be a really fun way to craft your items. And I think making these more accessible, they are already in the global drop pool, and they were a little rarer than I would have liked. So I think this is a-okay. I have no problems with this one whatsoever. Merciless Tornado Wand, more KB Deadeyes doing 5-way carries. Sure. Sure, more Wanders. I'm sure Matha will love this. That is a-okay. No problem there. And then we're back to Simulacrum. It's always good to be a little critical, a little thoughtful about changes, but also, not overly dramatic. And as always, don't forget to have fun, and I'll see y'all tomorrow. Goodbye.